roughly 600 years ago. In 1584, one of the most extraordinary men to ever live was born. He had over 50 duels to the death, and he ended up somehow dying of old age. His immaculate record shows a complete dedication to focus and discipline in the art that he chose. Now, as you saw from the title, this is none other than Miyamoto Musashi, the legendary samurai. One of the reasons why I wanted to focus on him for this video, especially as far as discipline, as far as focus goes, is because for him, at the time, what he was doing, the consequences could not have been higher. He was not trying to make more money, become better physically, get better relationships, none of that. His goal was either destroy the man in front of you or be destroyed yourself. And because of that, and I'm not here saying that's right or wrong, different times, not really relevant for what we're talking about, but because the consequences were so high, your life was the price to pay essentially, there was no room for error. There was no potential to skip days, today I don't feel like it, to be distracted, because if you were, well, you had the fate of one of his opponents, which is you're gone. Miyamoto even has the quote, and I'm gonna put it on the screen. I may get it wrong now as I'm speaking, but it's something like, today is victor over yourself, tomorrow is victory over lesser men. In his case, this quote was literally true because he was dueling other people. Now, in your case, I know likely you're not dueling other people. Maybe if you're a martial artist, a professional one, maybe you train as well, but for most people, unless you're in a competitive sport, usually it's not, competition is not that direct. It's not, you're not trying to overcome anyone, you're more trying to overcome yourself. But the quote still stands because regardless, you still have to overcome and become better than your current self. Now, the reason why I want to look at Miyamoto for this is because he dedicated his life to focus and discipline, and he never failed. He always was able to overcome the person in front of him, the lesser man, as he called them. And while, again, I don't want you to go ahead and duel anyone or go in the path of a samurai if that shit's even possible today, I do want you to become better. I want to become better myself, more disciplined, more focused, more productive, better, a better man. And by looking at these examples, and specifically Miyamoto, you can take so many lessons to apply to your studies, to your work, to your business, to your fitness, to absolutely drive progress forward. At the core of his success and what allowed him to be so disciplined, so focused, so always on his path was a set of 21 rules that he had for his own life. I'm going to put them on the screen right now. I'm not going to go over all of them. You can read. But something very interesting when you look at his rules and really go through them is that you realize most of them are about removing certain things and not about adding. They're about things you should not do, about vices you should not be incurring on, about certain things you should not be thinking and obsessing about. Essentially about the removal of that which is not necessary or helpful. And personally, my favorite's the last one, and every of the other rules really leads to this one. And it is quite simply, you must never stray from the way. He certainly never did stray from his way, at least not to the point where it was damaging to him, to the point that allowed him to lose. And this is what I want you to consider as well for yourself, having a code that you essentially live by. Now, I'm not saying it needs to be Miyamoto's code or a religious code or a code that's already been defined. It can be, and it certainly can be very helpful, but what I suggest is for you to craft your own code. To sit with yourself, to look at your life, to look at what you value, what you want to become, and what you don't want to become, and write those things for yourself. Because without this, without something higher than yourself, even if it was you that created, but we all know that in the bad days we're not our best selves, and so we need something better than that. We need something higher, something that can hold us in place even when we don't want to be held in place. A code. Now, when you look at a samurai like Miyamoto, traditionally there would be a lot of restrictions. In a lot of ways, if you had that life, you'd probably feel like you're not too free. Like you're lacking a bit of freedom to do things that you enjoy as well. And consequentially, naturally, your assumption may be, well, if I have these rules for myself, if I have this code for myself, then I'll live to constricted. I'll feel like I'm trapped in a prison of my own making. Now, what I want to say here is that perhaps that could happen if you are too strict with yourself. But that would always be better than the opposite, which is too much freedom. Because we all know what happens when you give yourself too much leeway and when you're, too benevolent with yourself and you start to indulge too much in what the mind tells you. And when there's nothing to hold you in place, chaos ensues. You start going down, you start skipping things you should not be skipping, and overall, your life starts to become worse. Now, hopefully, and most people at some point, take the reins back, there's plenty of people that never do. Plenty of people that start a downward spiral that ends with their death, or at the very least with their absolute failure in every area of life. When you go ahead and write your own code, first of all, it's naturally that it's not going to be perfect on the first draft. What I always suggest is for you to write a bunch of things that you want to be, you don't want to be, and then, edit that down until you have, like Miyamoto had, a bullet point version of who that is that you want to become and who you don't want to become. Now, it doesn't need to be 21 or 10 or 12 or, it's going to be up to you. The main thing and what matters most is that you give it the appropriate time, you're serious about it, and then you're committed to following these rules. Some days you will fall to fail these rules. It's natural. It's especially if you're not used to it. Some days you're gonna fail. You're not gonna be able to uphold yourself to the standard, and it's normal. You're not perfect. You're maybe just beginning, maybe not, but overall no one is perfect. Even Miyamoto, I'm sure he had few days, very few, but some that he failed to stay on the way. It's normal, it happens. But the main thing that will happen is that if you have this code and when you have it, you're gonna become aware when you're failing, when you're doing things you shouldn't do, when you're indulging in habits you should not be indulging, when you're doing things that take you from the path. And otherwise, you just be doing them. It's easy to find excuses, easy to just lie to yourself. This way you can't. This way, you'll always know. And the more aware you become, the more you evolve, the more you develop, the less days you're going to have that you fall off the path. And I want to finish by, obviously, you can take this advice already, but I want to leave you as well with just the thought that, because you may be thinking, oh, this is very hard, it's very difficult. Again, it seems like I'm going to lose a lot of freedom. But what I want to tell you as well is that progress of any kind is never supposed to be easy nor comfortable. If you're in a situation where everything's very easy, everything's very comfortable, you already know what to expect and what to do, likely you're not progressing, or at the very least not progressing as you'd like. So keep that in mind. If you struggle in the beginning, if maybe you feel even a bit worse in the beginning, give it time. Because if you allow yourself to develop the discipline and the focus similar to Miyamoto, things can only get better. I'll see you on the next one.